Number 10. Hard work always equals success. This belief begins as a comforting promise. If you give enough, life will give back. As a child, it feels empowering, like you've discovered the secret code to achievement. But the moment you grow older, that innocent belief turns into something heavier, something that wraps around your worth like a chain. Because now, every failure becomes a personal accusation. Every setback becomes proof that you didn't push hard enough. Every moment of rest feels like betrayal. You start equating effort with identity. If you're not grinding, you fear you're falling behind. You push through exhaustion because stopping feels dangerous. You stretch yourself into someone who always says yes because you think opportunities disappear the second you slow down. You worship productivity like it's a god that must never be disappointed. But life doesn't follow that formula. You can work until your spirit cracks, and things still might not unfold the way you hoped. Success doesn't bow to effort. It bends to timing, environment, privilege, mental state, support systems, intuition, and sometimes pure randomness. And because no one told you this, you punish yourself for things that were never in your control. This belief also makes you reject anything that comes easily. If a path feels natural, you distrust it. If a talent flows effortlessly, you downplay it. You've been taught to believe that only suffering leads to glory. So when something feels aligned instead of draining, you assume it's not real success. But true success isn't earned through pain. It's shaped through clarity, through knowing when to push and when to pause, through choosing the right path instead of forcing the wrong one, through valuing your inner compass more than the noise outside. When you release this childhood belief, you finally stop chasing worth through exhaustion. You begin choosing intentionally instead of endlessly. And slowly, you discover that success isn't about how hard you can drive yourself, it's about how deeply you understand yourself. Number 9. Being quiet makes you good. You grew up believing silence was a virtue. Adults praised you when you stayed quiet, when you didn't cause trouble, when you swallowed your questions and folded your feelings into neat, invisible corners. They told you good kids don't argue, don't interrupt, don't push back. And without realizing it, you learned a dangerous lesson. Your voice is a problem, and silence is safety. But silence doesn't make you good. It makes you disappear. It teaches you to shrink yourself so others feel comfortable. It trains you to hide your truth to avoid tension. You grow up thinking expressing yourself is rude, asking for clarity is disrespectful, and asserting your needs is selfish. You mistake suppression for maturity even when it's quietly killing you inside. This belief creates adults who apologize before speaking, who rehearse sentences in their head before daring to say them out loud. Adults who tolerate disrespect because confrontation feels impossible. Adults who feel invisible in groups, unheard in relationships, overlooked at work, not because they lack value, but because childhood taught them to lock their voice behind their ribs. And the worst part? You start policing yourself. You silence your own ideas. You cut off your own creativity. You abandon your own boundaries. You live small because being loud feels like breaking a rule you never questioned. But being quiet doesn't make you good. Courage does. Honesty does. Authenticity does. Real goodness comes from expressing your truth without fear, not from burying it. The world doesn't need more silence. It needs the wisdom you've been too afraid to release. When you finally challenge the belief that quietness equals goodness, something shifts. You start speaking even when your voice shakes. You start asking for what you need without guilt. You start choosing honesty over comfort. And slowly, you realize your voice was never the problem. It was the key you were taught to hide. Your silence didn't make you good. Your truth will. Number 8. You must always obey authority. As a child, authority looked enormous. Teachers, parents, elders, rules, systems. You were taught that obedience was safety, that compliance made you good, and that questioning meant disrespect. You learned to shrink your curiosity and stretch your obedience. And without noticing, a quiet lie was planted inside you. Power is always right, and you must always bow to it. But obedience, when swallowed without examination, slowly dismantles your inner compass. You stop trusting your intuition. You stop listening to your own logic. You let others decide what is right for you even when your body screams otherwise. You become terrified of conflict, terrified of saying no, terrified of disappointing anyone who stands above you, even if their authority is flawed, biased, or unjust. This belief builds adults who follow orders even when those orders go against their happiness. Adults who tolerate toxic bosses. Adults who stay in draining relationships because someone older told them to. Adults who choose careers to avoid upsetting parents rather than honoring their own soul. Adults who fear speaking up, even when silence costs them their peace. Obedience trains you to prioritize structure over truth, hierarchy over humanity, and approval over authenticity. It convinces you that survival comes from staying small, and yet the world you live in today requires the opposite. A voice that can question, a mind that can rebel when needed, and a heart that refuses to be controlled by outdated rules. Authority isn't always wisdom, age isn't always insight, and rules aren't always right. Blind obedience may keep you safe as a child, but it keeps you trapped as an adult. The moment you allow yourself to challenge authority, everything changes. You start asking why. You start noticing when power is misused. You stop letting titles intimidate you. You begin choosing your path not out of fear, but out of clarity. And slowly, the voice you once silenced becomes the compass that guides you. You don't exist to obey. You exist to understand, to question, and to become the authority of your own life. Number 7. Crying is weakness. You were taught early that tears are embarrassing, that crying makes you fragile, dramatic, too much. Maybe you heard adults whisper, "Stop crying," or "Be strong," as if strength meant silence. And so you learned to swallow your pain, hold your breath, and tighten your chest until every emotion became a secret prison. You believed the lie that vulnerability makes you breakable, when in truth, hiding it is what breaks you the fastest. This belief doesn't just silence your tears, it silences your emotional truth. You become someone who laughs when you're hurting, apologizes when you're overwhelmed, and hides behind "I'm fine," even when parts of you are falling apart. You internalize the idea that only weak people feel deeply and only messy people show emotion. And slowly, you split yourself into two, one part that hurts and another that pretends it doesn't. The tragedy is that this belief disconnects you from others. You fear being seen crying because you fear being judged. You fear being comforted because comfort feels undeserved. You fear breaking down because you think people will walk away. So instead, you isolate yourself behind emotional armor, convincing everyone you're strong, while your heart carries weights it was never designed to lift alone. But crying is not weakness. It's the body finally telling the truth. Tears are not a collapse, they're a release. They're the pressure valve that keeps you from exploding. They're a form of communication older than language, a way your soul signals that something inside needs attention, compassion, or healing. When you allow yourself to cry, you're not breaking, you're cleansing. You're letting the emotion move through you instead of rot inside you. You're giving yourself permission to feel without shame. Strength is not the absence of tears. Strength is the courage to let them fall. And when you finally unlearn the lie, you realize something profound. Crying doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. It connects you, softens you, grounds you. It frees you from the armor you never needed. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is allow yourself to feel. Number 6. Others' needs come before yours. You were taught to be considerate, polite, helpful, but somewhere along the way, the lessons twisted into something heavier. Your needs matter less than everyone else's, and you didn't question it because as a child, giving made adults smile. Self-sacrifice earned praise. Silence earned approval. You learned that being good meant disappearing. This belief creates a dangerous pattern. You start putting yourself last in every situation. You say yes when you want to scream no. You comfort others while your own wounds bleed quietly inside you. You blame yourself for feeling tired, overwhelmed, or disappointed because you were taught that taking care of yourself is selfish. And so you shrink. You become the reliable one, the strong one, the understanding one, the person who listens, absorbs, adjusts, the person who bends so others don't have to. You pour from an empty cup until the cup becomes a memory. And the saddest part, no one notices the cost because you've trained them not to. This belief also teaches you to love in unhealthy ways. You choose partners who take more than they give, friends who drain you, workplaces that reward your overgiving with even more demands. You think boundaries are cruelty, and putting yourself first is betrayal. And yet, you can't shake the exhaustion that follows you everywhere like a shadow. But the truth is simple and painful. You cannot save others by losing yourself. Your needs are not obstacles. Your feelings are not burdens. Your desires are not optional. When you don't honor them, you become a ghost in your own life, a helper, a healer, a giver, but never a whole human being. Putting yourself first doesn't make you selfish. It makes you responsible. It makes you stable. It makes you capable of giving in ways that don't destroy you. Real love is not self-erasure. It's self-respect. When you finally challenge this belief, the world shifts. You start saying no without guilt. You stop apologizing for your limits. You stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. And slowly, you rediscover something powerful. You deserve the same care you give so freely. Your needs are not the last chapter of your life. They're the beginning of your power. Number 5. Good kids never question rules. As a child, you were taught that rules were sacred, that good kids listen, follow, obey, that every instruction is truth, every guideline is wisdom, every adult is an authority who knows better than you. And because you wanted to be good, you complied. You silenced your doubts, you buried your curiosity, You trained yourself to follow the path laid out for you, even when your heart whispered that something felt wrong. But unquestioned rules don't create disciplined adults. They create disconnected ones. You begin to trust external approval more than your inner compass. You follow traditions you don't believe in. You stay in environments that suffocate you. You tolerate behaviors you should reject. And you slowly learn to betray yourself in the name of being good. This belief teaches you to fear your own voice. Every time you want to ask why, a childhood echo stops you. Every time you sense something unfair, you swallow it. Every time you crave change, you hesitate. Because the rule you learned says, if you question things, you are the problem. So you shrink, you comply, you stay quiet in meetings, you accept decisions that don't benefit you. You follow systems without noticing that some were built to limit you, not support you. And the tragedy is that no one tells you. Rules were made by people, and people are flawed, biased, and sometimes completely wrong. Rules are not truth. Rules are not morality. Rules are not destiny. Rules are frameworks, meant to be examined, challenged, improved, or abandoned when they no longer serve the human spirit. When you finally begin questioning, you reclaim parts of yourself you didn't know you lost. You rediscover your instincts. You challenge outdated beliefs. You stop confusing obedience with goodness. You begin shaping a life based on your own values, not inherited expectations. And slowly, you realize that the courage to ask why has always been more powerful than the obedience to say, okay. Good kids follow rules. Evolved adults refine them. Number 4. Perfection is the only way to be loved. This belief begins quietly, through the praise you received only when you behaved perfectly, performed flawlessly, or hid the parts of you that felt messy or inconvenient. Slowly, without anyone saying it out loud, you learned a painful equation. Love is conditional, and you must earn it by being perfect. And once that idea roots itself in your heart, it becomes impossible to rest. You live your life as if every moment is an exam, every interaction a test, and every flaw a threat to your worth. You start editing yourself in real time. You hide your sadness, your anger, your confusion. You show the acceptable version of yourself and bury everything else. You become hyper-aware of how people see you, terrified that one mistake, one slip, one imperfect moment will make them pull away. You apologize too much. You overthink every word. You replay conversations at night, searching for where you might have been less than perfect. This belief doesn't just exhaust you, it breaks you from the inside. You begin equating mistakes with rejection. You feel guilty for being human. You sabotage relationships because vulnerability feels dangerous. You stay in unhealthy dynamics because you're afraid that setting boundaries will make someone stop loving you. You chase external validation because your self-worth was never allowed to grow from within. Perfection promises safety, but delivers loneliness. It blocks intimacy because true connection can only happen when you're real, not flawless. It keeps you terrified of being known. It forces you to perform love instead of experiencing it. But love was never meant to be earned. Love was meant to be received, to be felt, to be shared. True love doesn't demand your perfection. It wants your presence. It wants your honesty. It wants the version of you that breathes, not the version that performs. When you finally let go of the belief that perfection is required, you allow people to meet the real you, the one with fears, quirks, wounds, dreams, cracks, and contradictions. And that's when love becomes something deeper, not admiration for your mask, but acceptance of your soul. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You only need to be human. Number 3. Mistakes are shameful. From childhood, you were taught that mistakes are stains, marks that reveal something fundamentally wrong with you. Maybe you were scolded for slipping up, embarrassed in front of others, or made to feel like every error was a reflection of your worth. Slowly, you absorbed a belief that mistakes aren't just missteps, they're personal failures. And once that belief settles inside you, every move in life begins to feel risky. You grow into an adult who double-checks everything, who hesitates before trying new things, who lives cautiously because fear of being wrong feels bigger than the desire to grow. You avoid opportunities because you're terrified of looking foolish. You stay silent in rooms where you could shine. You cling to safety, not because it fulfills you, but because it protects you from the shame you learned to fear so deeply. This belief doesn't just limit your actions, it limits your identity. You start defining yourself by your worst moments. You replay old errors in your mind like punishment. You think your slip-ups make you unworthy. And whenever you make a mistake, you don't simply correct it. You collapse into guilt, self-blame, and overthinking. You treat yourself like the mistake is you. But mistakes were never meant to be cages. They're teachers, mirrors, signals. They reveal what needs adjustment, not what needs hiding. They push you into growth, not shame. Every successful person you admire carries a history of wrong turns, failed attempts, and painful lessons. But they didn't let the mistakes define them. They let the mistakes shape them. When you free yourself from the belief that mistakes are shameful, your life opens. You begin experimenting. You begin exploring. You speak without fear of imperfection. You try things that once terrified terrified you. Failure stops being an identity and becomes information, feedback, not judgment. Mistakes don't make you unworthy. They make you real. They make you resilient. They make you wiser. Shame wants you silent. Growth wants you courageous. And the moment you stop treating mistakes as proof of failure, you finally begin to live without fear and with far more freedom than you ever imagined. Number 2. Your worth comes from grades achievements. You were probably praised more for your report cards than your curiosity. More for winning than for trying. More for achievements than for growth. And without anyone saying it directly, you absorbed a painful belief. Your value depends on your performance, not who you are, only what you produce. This belief turns life into a scoreboard. Every achievement gives you a brief sense of worth, until the next test, the next goal, the next finish line demands proof again. You never get to rest because worth built on achievement is temporary, fragile, always expiring. You chase validation like oxygen, terrified that slowing down will make you invisible. You become someone who feels guilty for not being productive, someone who ties identity to output, someone who doesn't know how to feel valuable without a list of accomplishments. Even in adulthood, you measure yourself through promotions, income, followers, praise, constantly trying to earn a sense of self that should have been unconditional. This belief also kills your relationship with failure. A mistake doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like identity collapse. A setback doesn't feel temporary. It feels like evidence that you're nothing without success. You begin to fear trying new things because if you can't excel immediately, you'd rather not try at all. Inside, your perfectionism becomes a shield, protecting you from shame, but also from growth. And yet, none of this reflects the truth. Grades don't measure creativity. Trophies don't measure kindness. Awards don't measure resilience. Achievements don't measure soul. Worth was never meant to be earned through performance. It's something you carry simply by existing. Something you express through your uniqueness. Something that grows when you are aligned, not when you are applauded. When you finally break this belief, your life expands. You start pursuing goals because they excite you, not because they validate you. You start celebrating progress, not perfection. You begin living boldly, making mistakes freely, experimenting without fear. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "Is this meaningful for me?" Achievements become chapters, not definitions. And you finally discover the truth. Your worth was never something you had to win. It was something you had from the beginning. Number 1. Love has to be earned, not given. Somewhere in childhood, you learned the most damaging lesson of all, that love isn't a birthright, it's a reward. Maybe affection came only when you behaved perfectly. Maybe attention appeared only when you impressed someone. Maybe warmth was rare, unpredictable, or tied to performance. And slowly, you began to believe a lie that shapes your entire adult life. Love is something you must work for. This belief follows you like a shadow. You start trying too hard in every relationship, overgiving, over-explaining, overcompensating. You worry constantly about being too much or not enough. You hide your real emotions because honesty feels risky. You tolerate behavior you shouldn't because losing love feels worse than losing yourself. You become someone who apologizes for having needs, who fears being a burden, who tries to earn affection by being useful, pleasing, perfect. And the tragedy is that you mistake scraps of attention for connection. You accept temporary validation as love. You feel grateful for the bare minimum because you believe you must earn anything more. This belief makes you chase emotionally unavailable people. It makes you feel unworthy of stable relationships. It makes you sabotage healthy love because it feels unfamiliar, even suspicious. And worst of all, it makes you perform your entire life, wearing masks that keep you from ever being fully seen. But here's the truth you were never taught. Real love isn't a transaction, it's a presence. It doesn't demand that you fix yourself first. It doesn't disappear when you're imperfect. It doesn't make you earn it like a prize. Love, real, grounding, liberating love, recognizes you. It meets you where you are. It expands when you're vulnerable, not obedient. It grows through truth, not performance. It offers safety instead of conditions. When you break the belief that love must be earned, something inside you finally relaxes. You stop chasing people who can't love you. You stop trying to entertain your way into acceptance. You begin setting boundaries not to push love away, but to protect the version of you that deserves it. And slowly, you discover that love meant for you will never ask you to shrink, to prove, or to beg. You don't earn real love. You open to it.